And we intercept 98% of boats now.
So did John Howard, when you said that.
Under the Howard government, 1 in 10 used to hit the mainland. They weren't intercepted. So our interception rates are better than they used to be. On my old press release, having had that interview with you, Laurie, I did get out the old files and have a look at it. You've got a far better memory than me. And when I looked at it, the contents of that press release were about urging the Howard government to do more, to patrol our borders, more naval assets. Well, we have more naval assets there now. And the contents of that press release were about working cooperatively with our regional neighbours, and obviously we do work with Indonesia and others, and I will be open to looking at further effective measures to drive that cooperation and work.
It's fair to say, isn't it, that as Shadow Minister after the 2001 Tampa election, as Shadow Immigration Minister, you actually were the substantive author of the policies which Kevin Rudd's government adopted. Is that fair?
I was the substantive author of a policy paper which became Labor's policy. It was called Protecting Australia, Protecting the Australian Way.
It was adopted in government?
It was adopted by the then Labor opposition. Obviously, so my successors in the portfolio put some of their own stamps on this, and we brought that policy into government.
But it is basically what you advised, wasn't it?
Oh, look, I think the underpinnings were in that document, Protecting Australia, Protecting the Australian Way. Some things have happened since I authored that document, of course. You know, the circumstances in Sri Lanka, for example, have changed radically since I authored that document. But, you know, if you're asking me, Laurie, does my attitude remain the same? My attitude is exactly the same, and I think it's caught by that title, Protecting Australia. We want to do that. This is our sanctuary. This is our home. Protecting the Australian way. I think that's about protecting values, like we've all got care and concern for innocent children, and we want to extend to them our best.
Now, you've now been pinged, along with Wayne Swan, as responsible for the shelving of the emissions trading system, the decision that more than anything else shredded Kevin Rudd's credibility. Do you accept responsibility for that?
I accept my fair share of
which sounds like the lion's share from the reports we had in the discussion.
I accept my fair share of the responsibility for all of the decisions that happened when Kevin Rudd was Prime Minister. I accept my fair share for the good things and the bad things.
But you did argue that the ETS should be dumped because it was hurting Labor politically. Is that true?
Laurie, I was concerned that if you are going to do something as big to your economy as put a price on carbon, with the economic transformation that implies, with changing the way in which we live, you need a lasting and deep community consensus to do it. And I don't believe we have that lasting and deep community consensus now. Now, I believe we should have a price on carbon, and I will be prepared to argue for a price on carbon to lead so that we get to that lasting and deep community consensus, but we're not there yet. We can take practical measures on climate change. I believe in climate change. I believe it's caused by human activity, and I believe we've got an obligation to act. And I'll be making some statements about some further things we can do to address the challenge of climate change as we work to that lasting and deep community consensus.
You didn't actually say, as Kevin Rudd did, that this is a great moral challenge of our time, but you did as recently as December say that delaying the ETS was the same as climate change denial. Are you a denier?
Well, no, Laurie, I'm not a denier. I'm not a denier, but I'm someone who believes that you've got to take the community with you when you make lasting and deep changes. Now, as Prime Minister, as a leader, I've got an obligation to have the conversation, to have the discussion, to indicate the attitudes, and I'm doing that today. I believe in the future of this nation we will have a price on carbon. I believe we will transform our economy the way that that price implies. I believe there will be ways in which we live that are different, but that's something that the community has to have a part in the decision, a part in the conversation, and we've got to drive the consensus for change.
Now, it seems to me, and to a lot of other people, that in terms of policy, the three big problems the Rudd government had were asylum seeker policy, the ETS backflip, and the mining tax. Now, Kevin Rudd basically followed your asylum seeker policy. He did what you wanted on the emissions trading system. I don't know if you can be blamed for the mining tax, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Well, Laurie, I can understand that as a sort of patter, if I can use that terminology for you. I can understand why you've wanted to put that patter together, but let's actually get to the facts here. I'm indicating to you my attitudes. I take my fair share of the responsibility for the decisions of the Rudd government. I was vice-captain of the team. That's a different position from captain of the team. Now I have the position of captain with all the ultimate responsibility that goes with that, and you will see as I exercise that ultimate responsibility what my attitudes are to each of the questions that you've indicated today.
Well, let's go to the third one. Can Captain Gillard get the mining tax out of the way in time for the election?
Well, I think I've taken a big step forward. On the first day as Prime Minister, my very first press conference, I think I took a big step forward for goodwill and respect in the discussion about the mining tax by saying we, the government, would take our ads off TV screens if the mining industry did the same. And well, we offered it. It wasn't conditional. We offered it unconditionally. Yep. We asked the mining industry to reciprocate, and in an act of goodwill they have. I think that's given us a terrific foundation to now have the genuine negotiations we need to get to a conclusion here.
Is the main difference between you and Mr Rudd on this that you are prepared to negotiate on the 40% level of the tax? Is that the key difference?
Well, I think the main thing is the settings going forward, and I've been clear about it. No ads, an act of goodwill, genuine negotiations to get this resolved. I've indicated my concern about the anxiety that this has caused Australians. I don't think that uncertainty is good for us. I don't think it's good for the nation. So we will work with the mining industry to get a fairer share for Australians. I do believe in that. But the mining industry generally says, yes, we can pay more tax. So the central question before us is the how question. How do we get this done? And I believe we can work together to answer that question.
Two things. If you in the end settle for a rate less than 40%, won't that be seen as a back down? And secondly, if that happens and you get less revenue,